Good evening and happy International Day of Women and Girls in Science. My name is Bree Storino and my pronouns are she, her, and hers. I am a geology major and co-director of the Women's Advocacy Council, or WAC, a student organization here at UW Oshkosh. Since 2015, the United Nations has recognized February 11th as the International Day of Women and Girls in Science to highlight the work that has been done and the work that remains to remove the many barriers women and girls face in STEM. WAC is proud to have led the celebration of this day, along with the Women's Center, nearly each year since its inception. The Women's Advocacy Council and Women's Center would like to thank the additional co-sponsors for this year's events, including the UW System Ideas Alliance, the UW Oshkosh Hmong Studies, International Studies, and Women's and Gender Studies programs, Department of Engineering and Engineering Technology, and Hmong Student Union, AAUW Oshkosh, and Wave Robotics Team 2826. We hope you enjoyed the community resource fair and were able to interact with the many wonderful organizations supporting women and girls in science and the Hmong community. Thank you to the participating organizations, including AAU, Appleton Oshkosh Tech Savvy, the Boys and Girls Club of the Fox Valley and of Oshkosh, Girl Scouts of the Northwestern Great Lakes, Hmong Service Center, Lego League Team 16152, Boxstein Balkan, Reach Counseling, Society of Women Engineers Wisconsin, Wave Robotics Team 2826, Women in Technology Wisconsin, and the UW Oshkosh Center for Civic and Community Engagement, Continuing Education, Cybersecurity Center of Excellence, Environmental Research and Innovation Center, Hmong Student Union, LGBTQ+ Resource Center, Pre-College Programs, Student Supportive System Services STEM, Sustainability Institute, Women's Advocacy Council, and the Women's Center. Now it is time to turn our attention to the keynote portion of the event. There will be time for questions after the presentation. It is my pleasure to share a little bit about Mai Lee Chang, our keynote, before turning the mic over to her. Mai Lee Chang is a Ph.D. candidate in the Electrical and Computer Engineering Department at the University of Texas at Austin and is advised by Dr. Andrea Thomaz in the Socially Intelligent Machines Lab. Her research goal is to create algorithms that enable robotic teammates to reason about task performance and fairness to achieve long-lasting human-robot partnerships. Prior to joining the University of Texas, she worked as an engineer at the NASA Johnson Space Center. She received her MS in Industrial and Systems Engineering, MBS in Engineering Mechanics and Astronautics from the University of Wisconsin-Madison. And even before then, Mai Lee graduated from Oshkosh North High School. Please join me in welcoming Mai Lee Chang.
All right, you all can hear me okay? All right. Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for coming here, and also thank you so much for the kind introduction. I especially want to thank Dr. Alicia Johnson and the Women's Center for inviting me to be a part of this wonderful event, and all the sponsors of this event as well. Today is a really important day for STEM, actually. And it's an honor to be able to share this day with you guys, International Day of Women and Girls in Science. So as a part of celebration of this day, I wanted to take a minute here just to thank the women mathematicians, engineers, and scientists who came before us to pave the way for us. You see pictures here so you see pictures here of women from NASA. The black and white photos are from the 1950s. These women were considered human computers because back in the 1950s, male scientists and engineers did not trust computers. And so they had the programming jobs for women. And so these brave women were the ones who really helped make breakthroughs for our space missions. So just to name a few, the one in the lower corner is of Katherine Johnson. And you all probably are familiar with her story if you've seen Hidden Figures, that movie. She's a African-American mathematician during that time. And in the center photo is of Macy Macy Roberts and also Helen Lang, and they were supervisors of the computing group during that time. They gave great efforts to employing women to be a part of their team. And so those are just a few. This is the computer group that they were supervising. And then the photo that's in color is of Sally Ride, who is best known for being the first American woman in space. So all these women, their bravery and the resilience that they have and being pioneers is really makes it better for us today. So the breakthroughs that they're able to make. But it's important, I think, for us to remember their stories and also realizing just how much, we have come. But a part of that is also realizing how much we still need to go because the STEM field is still heavily dominated by men. For my talk today, the first half is I'll be sharing about my PhD research, and then the second half is sharing about my career journey. So as mentioned earlier, I'm a PhD candidate in the Electrical and Computer Engineering Department at UT Austin, advised by Dr. Andrea Thomaz. And this lab, our robots have been featured in Popular Science as well as in the MIT Tech Review and recently in National Geographic. The research focus in our lab is human-robot interaction, a focus on robots learning from people and human-robot teamwork. And my PhD topic is human-robot teamwork. And this photo here is what inspired me to pursue my PhD, actually. So here you see Robonaut. Robonaut is a NASA robot that's been on the International Space Station for a couple years. And you also see a human astronaut there. So what do you notice in this photo? And one thing I would like to point out here is that they are holding their handshaking. And this is a symbolism of a collaboration. What else is there? Okay, and I would like to point out that they're also seeing eye to eye. And so seeing eye to eye has a lot of symbolism as well. This means that as a team, you know what the tasks at hand are, you know what the goal is, and you're committed to fulfilling that goal. You're committed to helping each other out. And a part of that helping each other out is communicating in a timely manner. And so besides astronauts, needing help, needing help from robots as we travel deeper into space, there are plenty of other people who may need help as well. And so this includes kids, elderly, even during the pandemic here, nurses, and people with disabilities and more. So for me, what's exciting is that the potential for robots to be able to help us in various ways in our daily lives. And so these are the robots that you may be familiar with. The ones are from movies like Star Wars with C-3PO, and then the Bumblebee, for instance, from the Transformers. And the other two robots that you see here are from my lab, Mo and Polly. And so let's take a quick look at what a robot is anyway, right? So a robot is made of a computer, that's its brain. It also needs sensors like microphones and cameras, in a sense representing eyes and ears. And it also needs actuators, such as arms and wheels, so it can move around. And it needs a display. Maybe there are certain times where it's better for a robot to display something to communicate what's inside to others. And then you put everything together and you get a robot, right? But then it's not quite exactly like this. When you have a team of engineers and scientists, you get robots that are like these. But keep in mind that the actual core components of what I mentioned earlier are all still there. And so we tell these robots, hey, go and help people. And so I'd like for you to consider this teaming scenario that's from one of my Engineers Without Borders trip, where we were helping a village in Thailand with their water needs. And so this photo here just shows the skeleton of the storage tank. But before that was done, we were working really hard on it. And so yes, we tell this robot to go help people. And for you and I, when we see the situation, it's really easy for us to adapt and to be helpful right away. But for a robot, this is a challenging environment for it to be and to understand what's going on. So you may ask, what does it take to design for successful human-robot interaction? And in this particular social teamwork, the challenge is the competition aspect of it. So one is that there's perception challenges. The robot needs to understand what is its environment, its physical environment, including obstacles. And there's also a challenge of planning. So there are two different levels of planning. So planning at one level is just the robot trying to figure out what tasks it needs to work on. But then there's also a level of where, for instance, for this robot, moving its arm, like controlling the motors on its arm to be able to coordinate with people. For instance, when you're handing a tool to somebody, people don't just keep their arm out here for a while. It's very fluid interaction. You do this, someone gives you something, you go on and do what you need to do. And another aspect is communication. So the natural form of communication is language, but people also communicate in various ways, nonverbal, body gestures, facial expressions, for instance. And this communication is a two-way street. The robot needs to understand what people are telling, and then the robot needs to also communicate back to show what the robot wants to do or what's internal in its system as well. And there's a learning component because as designers, we can't design these robots to know every specific task that they'll have to do. So robots need to learn on the job in a sense to be able to learn from people to teach them new tasks. And in this instance, because of the social environment, the robot also needs to learn about people's expectations of what teamwork is like. And in this sense, there's a culture aspect as well. So the robot may also need to consider that. And then all of these elements have to work in real time. And that is a computational challenge of its own. So these challenges are really fascinating and in this area. And they're also really important to enable robots to interact and collaborate with people. And my research spans a couple of these. So specifically for my thesis, I seek to answer the question, how do we design valuable robotic teammates? And this question also leads to what makes a great team? And then a part of that is, in particular, what makes a great teammate? So if you reflect on the teamwork that you've been a part of and the types of teammates that you've had, I'm sure you could think of all these multiple factors. And that's what I propose, is that robotic teammates must be able to reason about multiple dimensions of teamwork. And research shows that people treat robots as other people too. So that's where the complexity comes in designing robotics. So one of the dimensions that I focus on is intent understanding. So this comes in two ways, right? So understanding intent and then showing your intent to others. Examples here are of a soccer match. There's a lot of intent understanding going on there, and it influences the outcome of the game, the ability for you to communicate with your teammates and predict what your opponents are going to do. And then in the construction scenario, the fluid interactions with handing tools, for instance, trying to understand someone's intent from there. And so in the lab, we try to simplify as much as we can these interactions. And in this study here, we're studying both intent recognition and understanding. Prior studies focus on these concepts separately, but we implemented an integrated system that looked at both of these. And so in this particular task, the robot and the participant, their job is to pour into the same container. The person gets to select which cup, and then the robot gets to select the bin. So let's break down this interaction. So here, this first part of predicting the human's intent, the robot doesn't want to grab the same cup as the human, but it doesn't know which one the human's going to grab first. So these are views from the cameras of the robots, but so there are two methods that we looked at. The first one is the robot just detecting if the cup is on the table. And this takes a robot about 2 seconds to do that. This is late detection because the person already grabbed what item they're going for. And the other method that we looked at is tracking the motion of the person's hand. So here it takes 1 second, and the robot's able to predict before the person actually grabs the cup. And so here we use a classifier using motion vectors from the hand. And then the next part of that interaction is for the robot to get a chance to communicate its intent to the person. So the robot has a bin that it's selecting, but the person doesn't know which bin. And so here there are two ways that we're looking at this. One is the robot does a trajectory with its arm that's a straight path to the goal. And so this takes the person 7 seconds to guess or predict the robot's intent. Now, in the other one, the motion trajectory that we are looking at is a different optimization where the robot actually moves farther right to the right earlier on interaction. So people here are able to predict the robot's intent way faster, 1 second. And this study basically confirms that, yes, intent understanding is really important for collaborative work, and it helps enhance the teamwork. So now, using the insights that we've learned from that study, we developed this teammate algorithm for shared cooperation that takes into consideration 3 dimensions of teamwork. So one is the intent recognition and understanding. And then there's another one that we consider effort. So how effort the robot is perceived by the human. And another dimension is the value of the robot. So here it represents efficiency, but value enables the robot to keep on working the entire time until the task is done. And the challenge with this is how to represent these concepts computationally. And so that's a challenge for this algorithm. And we're able to evaluate the algorithm in various different tasks, but one of the ones that we evaluated that I wanted to share with you guys is this tower assembly task, where the goal is for them to assemble a tower, and there are different blocks with that represents different weights, the heavier and lighter blocks. And these blocks are also traveling different distances. So you got to move a block from the storage to the prep area, and then you go and stack on the table. And the goal is that is for the team to do this before the human's exhaustion level reaches the 100%. And so depending on the task, the robot can prioritize different elements of this teamwork. So here, one is where the robot prioritizes the value aspect of it. So value enables the robot to work efficient stacking in this sense. So you can see that the robots, okay, so here you can see that the first action of the robot in the value condition is that gray block, because the gray block is the next block that's needed to stack. But if you tell the robot to optimize for the effort, then the robot's first action here is to pick a heavy block, actually. And from the study, we see that the majority of people prefer a robot that shows effortful behavior. And so far, I've focused on elements of teamwork that are optimizing for the task performance aspect of teamwork. But I also realize that as robots come into our homes and our workplaces, and that they're going to be interact with more than one person. And when you interact with more than one person in a group, fairness is an underlying concept that is important. And so why is fairness important? And I think that with the recent events that are happening these days, we all know the answer. I wanted to share an example from machine learning and AI here, where there's a tool called Compass that judges use to make decisions, parole decisions in the US here, actually. And an investigation found that this tool is biased towards African Americans. So just like humans, algorithms are vulnerable to bias that makes their decision unfair. And I argue that because a robot is a robot that comes into our homes and our workplaces that will be interacting with more people, the group dynamics of it, and that these algorithms, like the Compass one that's making decisions about groups of people, as for designing robotic teammates, we have to consider fairness as well. So why is fairness important in teamwork? So let's look at that specific aspect of it. So for this here, there's a task here where there's a robot and two humans, Chris and Pat. So Chris is the red human there, and Pat is the blue human. And their jobs are to get, their goal is to get all these jobs done, moving boxes, vacuuming rugs, and cutting flowers. And so I'd like you guys to watch this animation where, oh, sorry. Okay. All right, so Chris likes moving boxes, but he's slow. And Pat likes cutting flowers and fast. So you see the robot going there, optimizing for task efficiency and helping Chris. So from Chris' perspective, the robot may be unfair because he is not getting able to do what he likes. The robot's taking his tasks that he likes away from him. And then from Pat's perspective, though, Pat didn't get any help from the robot at all. And Pat actually is just down there by himself. And so Pat may even feel left out. For this scenario, that's just one of them. But here I argue that we can do better, than looking at, my question is, don't you think that we can do better than optimizing for people as just objects in the optimization problem? And I say, yes, we can. And so that's what leads to my next part of research here. This area of research is actually really exciting because it's new, and that my work's actually one of the very first ones in this area. So the first part is just understanding what factors do people use when they judge fairness and teamwork. And we devised this study where the robot and the person are sorting items into a bin. In order to know which bin the item goes to, they need to do a math problem. So you do a math, and then it says, okay, this goes into red bin. And so it's very obvious that the robot is best at doing the math, right? And the person is best at picking items. And so what we learned from here is that people use different factors to judge fairness. Some people say, I want to execute a divide and conquer strategy where the robot should do what it's best at and I will do what I'm best at. So capability space. There are other people who says, I don't care what you're good at. I just want you to do both math and pickup. And then there's another group of people that says at the very high level, we just need to do the same number of tasks. It doesn't matter. You complete half and I complete half. And so as you can see, there is a complexity to trying to put numbers to quantify what fairness is in a scenario like this. And so our next step was, so in that first study, we proposed fairness metrics. And our next step was to evaluate these metrics. And so here we have the scenario that I shared earlier with Chris, Pat, and the robots, but different scenarios of varying fairness conditions. And we're able to see that, yes, the metrics do align with people's perception of fairness. And we discovered this really interesting effect, and we call it the bleed over effect, where if there in a situation, if there are multiple factors that are contributing to unfairness, and when you ask someone says, hey, is it fair that people are contributing equally based off of capabilities, for instance, they would use these other factors to make that decision. So they can't really focus on what you ask them for. And this is important for us to be able to design algorithms. And what this means for algorithms is that they need to be robust to other potential sources of fairness that may occur throughout the interaction. And so I really enjoy doing research. I mean, it's difficult, but it's also fun to think about all these problems and trying to find ways of trying to solve them. And so I'll close this first half of my talk with just my thoughts and reflections about my journey so far. And so what I realized, one thing is that in my research is that I've been trying to quantify what it means to be human, really. And through that, I see that the uniqueness of all of us, that is a beauty that I see every time I see participants that come and interact with robots. I always learn something different about what it means to be human. Um, and then I've also gained a different perspective about the issues that are facing our society today. I recognize that my work in AI in general is only a part of the solution in tackling the many challenges that we face in society, and it's not the ultimate solution. And more important, I also realize that today's world needs responsible designers. That sometimes we're given a project and we're so focused on getting that project to work that it meets all the requirements and that we finish it on time. But I realize it's also important to think about the implications of what it means when our projects, our systems are deployed in the world. So I'm alluding to the compass example that I shared earlier, for instance. And one thing that I like to think about in terms of this is like, who are you really helping? And in that aspect, also, like, who are you not helping? The solutions, the systems that you build. And so I've shared with you highlights from my research. And next, I'll switch gears to share with you about my career journey. So here's an overview of my career path. I graduated in 2010 with my bachelor's in engineering mechanics and astronautics from UW-Madison. And this photo is of my senior design team. We won an aerospace design competition and went to present at the conference. And that year it happened to be in Hawaii. So it was a fun trip. And then after graduation from my master's, I took a full-time position with NASA. This is one of the spacecraft, Orion, that I worked on. And then after 5 years at NASA, I decided to pursue my PhD, and that's where I am at right now. So I'll share with you about my roots because I think this is important. And so I was born in a refugee camp in Thailand. The picture here is of my family, and right before we immigrated to the US as refugees of the Vietnam War. I'm the one next to my mom here. And this photo here, I look at it from time to time because it reminds me about the resilience of the generations before me, my parents, my grandparents, and just how much they had to persevere for my siblings and me to have opportunities like this. And so it's an inspiration for me. We settled in the US, in California, and we move around a little bit, but the next photo is of in California. And so growing up, it was hard as a kid because the language barrier was one thing. I didn't know English on my first day of school. I really only just knew the word restroom. And so besides just the language barrier, there's also like culture clashes that I experienced growing up as well. But I wanted to share with you because my takeaway that I learned is your starting point doesn't automatically determine your destination. As a child, I didn't envision being an engineer, working for NASA, being a roboticist, pursuing my PhD. But along the way, those are things that happen. And I think a big important aspect of it, as I reflect now, is my perspective of what adversity is. And so the way I see is that you can see adversity as a bridge to something greater, or you can choose to see it as a weight that weighs you down. And we have that choice, even when we don't have the choice of whatever that situation adversity that we're facing. And so growing up, we move around a bit, but for my high school years, it was all in Wisconsin and Oshkosh here. So these are some of the amazing mentors throughout my career. 3 of them are from Oshkosh North High. So one is Christine Hartis here. During my time at Oshkosh North, she was advisor of the yearbook, and I was co-editor during that time. And so what I learned from Christine is about being bold, that it's okay if you're the only voice or the only one in that room to raise your hand. Another important mentor is Mr. Mishi, who is my physics teacher. And he's the one that encouraged me to look into engineering, actually, because during that time I didn't know what engineering is. But I really love physics. That's the thing. So just talking to him, and he's like, "Oh, you should definitely look into engineering." And I took his advice. Mr. Boda was my math teacher, calculus teacher during that time, and Mr. Boda really believed that all of us can learn calculus. And so he had this saying that says, whatever you put in equals whatever you get out, and really emphasize the importance of strong work ethic. So I would spend countless hours after school getting help on homework and clarification on concepts. And so, yeah, so Mr. Boda was one of the ones that helped me learn about hard work ethic. And then the last one is Professor John Lee. He was my advisor during my master's, and he really taught me the fundamentals of research. And he gave me a piece of advice after I graduated that stuck with me as I went on to NASA. And he said, "Hey, if you want to come back for your PhD, you need to come back soon. As in, like when you're out in the workforce, you're gonna get comfortable, and the longer you're out, the less chance of you coming back." And so I really remember his advice, and it was something in the back as I worked at NASA. And so during my freshman year, I entered as undecided. I didn't know what I wanted to study. I took Mr. Mishi's advice and trying to understand and learn more about engineering, but I was also interested in other areas like astrophysics and international relations and political science. I made it my goal after that to decide on a major after my freshman year. And the strategy that I took was, I call it intended exploration. My perspective during that time was that UW-Madison, that campus, it's not bounded by UW-Madison. My campus is the world. And so I took opportunities to study abroad, to learn more a little bit about the international component. And I studied at a engineering French school. So I got to learn more about engineering that way as well. So it was a big plus too. And I also did research as part of undergraduate research programs to learn about astronomy. And one of the neat things that I participated in is this microgravity. NASA had a program called Microgravity University. And so teams across the US would propose experiments that they want to conduct on NASA's C9 airplane. And the amazing thing about this is like the airplane does these parabolas, and at the top, you experience microgravity for about 20 seconds, and that's the time that you do your experiment. And so this zero G team was amazing in that I was able to see the like hands-on aspect of engineering and just really loved it. And so luckily that year, my freshman year, our proposal got accepted, and we went down to Johnson Space Center in Houston to do our experiment. And that's also my first introduction to NASA, actually, from there, and learning more about all the cool things that they were doing. And so that really was an important experience for me. So from there, I decided to choose engineering, but I also decided to stay within the Wisconsin international programs to still keep my other interests. And so the takeaway message here is that it's okay. I think if you don't know exactly what your next step or goal is, but you should be strategic about how to find that and maximize the resources and opportunities that you have. And so during my undergrad, I applied to NASA's Pathways Intern program. And this program is great because it offers a direct path, like pipeline to full-time employment. So you have to do a couple, I think the requirement is 3 internships during your undergrad. And so I got accepted for this internship program and went to Johnson Space Center. So you may know of Johnson Space Center from the Apollo 13 movie where it says, "Houston, we have a problem." That is the center where it's home to astronaut training and mission control, the space station, Orion spacecraft. And so I had an amazing time with all of my internships there. These photos here is one of the teams that I work with in the neutral buoyancy lab. And this lab basically is a huge pool where we do spacewalk training. So you have the mock-ups of the International Space Station, life size, for the training. And so I was fortunate to have the opportunity to dive there. And the background story of this diving is that when I started this internship for this particular tour, I didn't know how to swim. But it was such a neat opportunity. Like you're there in this pool, you go to work every day, and you see all the divers and all the training, and you get a chance to dive too. And so I was like, okay, I'm gonna learn how to swim and dive. And so with the help of, I had really good divers there. And so with the help of friends there, helping me learn to dive and swim and pass this test, I was able to dive. And this astronaut is astronaut Shannon Walker during one of her training runs. And as part of one other thing that I really enjoy is being able to participate and studies that goes on. And so this is a study about the next generation of suit design that I participated. And as a female on the smaller end representing the 5th percentile, they need plenty of us as well. And so it was really neat to be able to participate and learn about these designs and studies. And so that's one of the suit tests. And NASA does a really good job of connecting you with your peers, like your other interns. So this is a photo of us about to go on our skydive. So that was a lot of fun as well. And we also do activities like going to, in this particular one, it was the Lunar Google X Prize competition. And this is my first interaction with robots, actually. It was later on, but it had impact on me because it was so fun. And as my time at NASA, I remember my first encounter with this little robot. And so after my bachelor's, I continued to get my master's, and then after that, going to NASA for full time. But it really does take a village to raise a child. I'm really truly blessed for all the support that I have, my family, my friends, coworkers, mentors. And so the picture in the middle is of my parents, who are my backbone, and also one of the wisest mentors that I know is Dr. Mercio Lee, who worked with Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. back in the day. And so just really amazing person. Yeah, so after graduation, packed my stuff and moved down to Houston. And now at NASA, I had basically two main roles. One was doing research in human robot interaction and human automation interaction. So here, just a couple photos from some of the projects, but one project in particular that had a big impact on me and my decision to pursue graduate school to learn more is the project that looked at all the current NASA robotic systems and seeing what is it that's working well and what are areas that we can improve on. Basically, what does the next generation of space robotic systems need to look like? And so that was really awesome because I was able to learn about Robonaut, the earlier version that you see here. Also spent some time at JPL learning about the Mars rovers. You see a real size of Curiosity here, a mock-up. Of course, Curiosity is on Mars now. And then the robotic arms on the International Space Station. And so those were really neat because it really gave me a holistic view of these systems. And then the little robot in the upper corner is a project where we were working on teleoperation because as we go deeper into space, the time delay is a challenge for us. And so we were working on camera overlays to help teleoperators. And this particular study, it focused on more finite types of manipulation. So putting this block into a really tight container. And my other role is with the Human Systems Integration team. So this is with the Orion spacecraft designed to carry man to Mars and beyond. And so my role is to help that the hardware for Orion meets human systems requirements. What that entails is performing these human-in-the-loop evaluations where you have all the needed teams, the hardware inside the Orion mockup that you see here. And you also have astronauts that you would go through the specific like tasks, scenario that you are working on that day, and figuring out if design changes need to be made. And so I really love this aspect because I got to learn so much about the different subsystems of the spacecrafts, and got to work with just amazing teams and really smart and talented people. So I really love that aspect of it. And then one thing that I also like about NASA is the outreach aspect, being able to share about what we're working on, and also see the public's enthusiasm for space exploration. So the lower photo is of an outreach event at a Comic-Con convention, actually. So the girl here has an amazing outfit, like with a shuttle backpack on there. And so it was just a great joy to see just how much others also love exploration, space exploration. And during my time at NASA, I enjoy volunteering for Engineers Without Borders. So EWB, their mission is that we can create a world where every community's basic needs are met. This basic needs as in like water and power, electricity. And I believe in that vision, and I wanted to contribute to it. And it was a great way to use engineering skills outside of just my career. And so I seized the opportunity to help. And so my team, we worked on a water storage tank for a village for about 200 people in northern Thailand. So the first phases of the project is just understanding the community's needs and mapping out their area, the geography, and collecting data, samples of water and the quality of the water that they have, where water sources are as well. And so we end up designing this storage tank that's about 16 feet in diameter and 6 feet tall, and it holds about 10,500 gallons of water. So it's a big tank. Um, and this project spans about 3 years. So it's amazing that you can see the beginning of the project and be able to see its finished product as well. So these photos here are from the implementation. You can see the progression of the tank as we work on it. And I think for me, the most rewarding part is to see the positive impacts, because the goal is to empower the villagers, to give them hope for that tomorrow will be better. And I believe in that model of empowerment and hope. And so it was just great to be able to see their smiles and to know that yes, to let them know that yes, we hear you, and we are trying to help in a little bit that we can. So lastly, I want to leave you with an analogy about breaking barriers from space exploration. And so as you walk into a room, you may see people at the table who may not look like you. And I think that in fact that the fact that they don't look like you, it's even greater for you to try to sit at that table and to have a voice there. There's always room for diverse voices, and we need more of that. And so one of the biggest challenges that faces spaceflight is achieving escape velocity. This is what's needed to break free of the Earth's gravitational pull. And because of this, spacecrafts were designed to be as light as possible to be able to travel fast. I just want to, talk a little bit more about that. That before launch day, these astronauts, they train with the best of the best, and they train for a long time, like 4 to 5 years for a 3 to 6 month mission. For me, I wish that as you pursue your journey and your dreams, that you are assembling the right teams for launch day. And I really believe that, if someone like me, who's a little girl born in a refugee camp, who can pursue her PhD, that you definitely can do anything and more than what you dream of. And so I'm really excited to see what you have, especially the students here, the amazing things that you're going to be doing, and that we really need each of you, and Godspeed. So that concludes my talk. Thank you.
We do have time for questions. So if folks want to come up and ask questions, we would love to hear them from you.
Thank you for coming. This is wonderful.
Thank you so much.
Can you, over the years, as you were growing up, well, let me back up. Do you see women in STEM careers improving? And there are many reasons why women haven't stayed in STEM. Do you see the barriers dropping?
I think in what I see in my experiences in grad school and at NASA, I think the barriers is dropping, but it's a slow rate. There's still a lot to be done. And like, for instance, it's great that in my lab, actually, the majority of the PhD students are girls. And a part of it is, I think, because my advisor is a woman. And so the aspects like that are important. And even at NASA, like, diversity is it's important for them and they really embrace it. And so and they do try to do a good job with trying to attract women scientists and engineers as well. And so I think that it is slowly improving, but we still have more work for sure. Mhm.
Do you think you're going to be doing any more projects outside of America, like the Philippines, Africa, anything?
That's a great question. So the question was if I would do engineering projects outside of the US. And yes, I definitely want to. EWB had a profound impact on me. And I hope to continue doing work similar to that, returning to EWB or some organizations that are similar to do more humanitarian type of work as well.
What would you say to like young women today, and what do you think would be the most important first step to get closer to having like our kids and our grandkids to have a better future than we would have?
That's a great question. I think I would say, don't be afraid, because you will face challenges. But I think that it's kind of similar to my message earlier with the way that you see adversity, and that adversity can be viewed as a bridge or something that can weigh you down. So I say, like, be courageous and don't let anyone stop you in reaching your dreams, because the thing is, like, they don't know what you have to go through, but sometimes when you're in a room with others, that doesn't like you're there because of your knowledge and your skills. You are qualified already. Like, you don't need to prove that to anyone when you are there at that table sitting with them. And so if anyone treats you differently in that environment, they have other issues. So I would say just be brave and keep on going.
So I'm one of many women here who work with girls who are right at that border, that middle school, high school border where we start to see the girls who were super excited
Yeah.
when they were in elementary school start to have to make choices between different things they're interested in, and sometimes the science and the dinosaurs and space and the robots start to fall away, or not as many opportunities that they readily see as easily. What suggestions do you have for girls in that age group to try to keep sparking their interest and keep going so that the space interest is still there to get them to Madison, to get them to NASA,
Yes.
and through this hard spot?
Yes, that's such an important question and something for all of us to really think about. As I reflect back, I think that one thing that could help is to continue the exposing them to just the awesomeness of science and space. I mean, in STEM areas, like through hands-on things. So like all the resource fairs today, I think that's amazing to bring them to be able to especially see what others are doing. So for me, like, it was things like going to EAA that really stuck with me, and really love seeing all the airplanes there. And so just continue exposing them to different areas, I think would really help, and trying to help them keep that factor in.
Hello, I
Hi.
am the chat monitor, And so I'm going to ask some chat questions as we get them.
Oh, awesome. Thank
Yeah.
you. Yes.
So the first question is, how do you keep a work-life balance, and what do you like to do for self-care?
Oh, wow. Yes, yes. Yeah, work-life balance is so important, especially with the pandemic. I think, um, yeah. So for me, I keep one day of the week that I just don't work, and I think that really helps me to be ready for Monday, really. And so there's always, so for me, it's usually Saturdays that I keep that I just don't do any work. And so that helps. I also like exercising and just taking walks outside as well. And my faith is also really important for me. So I spend like quiet time reflecting as well. And praying. And so, yeah, so for me, those aspects are important.
So we talked about, getting kids that spark, but how as an adult do you keep the spark going as well?
Yes. I think for me, I realize that we're always learning, no matter what phase we are. That we're always learning, and I think as long as you keep that mentality of like being a student, because you can learn from everyone. In the lab, I also have undergraduates who I'm mentoring, and I learn a lot from them too. It's not just a one-way street where I'm teaching them, but I'm learning a lot from them. And so I think that just having that mentality of always learning, and being curious and being open, because when I was working at NASA with these robotics projects, I didn't know the profound impact that it would have on me. But I was like, oh, that sounds really interesting. Yes, I'll work on it. And look at what it did, and it took me. And because you don't really know until I think you really explore deeper into specific areas.
Once you successfully defend your dissertation, what's next?
The crystal ball. um, I I think I want to work as a research scientist, and so yeah, I'll see what opportunities come up. But I really like research, and I would like to continue doing that. Um, I'm considering going back to NASA as well as an option. I mean, I think it just depends on what they have at the time that I graduate. But I've always had a a space in my heart for NASA and space exploration, I think. So I'm definitely considering them. Yes.
If you could design anything, what would it be?
Oh my gosh, the blue sky. Wow, if I could design anything. That's a really loaded question because it really makes me think about impact and like the question of like who do you want to help, and that aspect. And so I think I would probably do something maybe in the healthcare just because of the pandemic and just how much that system really needs help and the potential for robots to help. And so, given the time that we're in, I think that's a area that could use, yeah, a lot of help from robotics as well.
Follow-up question from me.
Yeah.
Have you seen Big Hero 6?
Yes.
Because that would be amazing.
Oh, I really love Big Hero 6 too.
Hey there.
Hi.
I'm wondering what advice you would give to your high school self. Did you have any idea you would be here today? What advice would you, if you could say something to the high school self you were, what would you say?
Yes. Oh, okay. So I did not have any idea that I would be here today as a high schooler for sure, because I wasn't sure what I wanted to study at that time. I just knew that I really liked math and science, but I was also interested in other areas because from taking French class, I took my first trip ever to France and really loved that international aspect. And so, yeah, so I didn't, yeah, I wouldn't, yeah, didn't envision a day like this. But advice for my younger self, I think, will be to not worry too much. I think to enjoy the moment, to really live that moment, and to absorb it all, even when it is hardship that you're going through, because out of that hardship, it really makes you a better person too. And so I would say, yeah, don't worry too much.
Who's your hero?
My hero. Wow. I think my hero is my parents, because of what they've done for us and just how hard they work and the sacrifices they made for my siblings and I. And so, yeah, my parents and my grandmas too. Grandmas are strongest women that I know. So, yes.
Is there an industry that we are not thinking about right now? Can you foresee robot bartenders or food servers, or what are you all talking about that we don't know right now?
The inside scoop, right? um, I, I can foresee robot bartenders. I mean, I've seen robot machines that make pizza, for instance, and so and make coffee and all of that. So, yeah, I think the food industry, we would be able to see more robots there too. In terms of other areas, yeah, I think it's I mean, healthcare robots are in hospitals right now. They're helping nurses. There are robots who are helping with maintenance in facilities that are remote, that are hard for us to go and check all the time. So areas like that. And so, but I think what I love so much about robotics is that there's so much that we can create. Like what we see right now is just a small fraction of what it could be. And I think that's where we really need the younger generation to increase their interest and to help contribute to that, especially girls.
This might be more of a technical question here, but
Yeah.
so do you believe that it's possible to create artificial emotion within robots? And if so, how does that influence or benefit the interactions between humans and robots themselves?
That's a really good question. My area is not within like emotions designed and that aspect of the interaction. Um, but I think that I mean that's possible. I think it comes down to maybe what your definition of how much emotion is there that you want the robot to have. But the fact is that the way how we interact with robots and what studies shows is that people do treat robots as other similar to other humans. So emotions is a big component of that. And you've probably seen all the movies about that aspect of it too. But I think it's one of a really interesting challenge to try to figure out for sure. Mhm.
With your lived experiences as a young Hmong refugee girl, among other identities, what can we do to empower young women today to continue pursuing and reaching for more than they can imagine possible?
Wow, great question. Yes. I think one thing is just to encourage the women and the girls around you to continue pursuing STEM if that's what they're already interested in. But in general, just to encourage them to do something that they really love and are passionate about, that they have a fire for. As I mentioned earlier, AI is not the ultimate solution to our problems. AI is great, and for instance, in one aspect is that it can assemble millions of data and help us be a diagnostic tool to the problems that we have in society. But we also need other expertise too, like a policymaker. It may be that a policymaker needs to make that policy from the data that the AI can tell us and the pattern that it sees. And so I say is to encourage the women and the girls in your around you to do what they really love.
If you had any like fear or anxiety about the cost of going back for your master's or your PhD, how did you get over that?
Yes, it was a really hard decision for me to decide to leave NASA and to pursue my PhD because I really loved what I was doing at NASA. But I really had a strong interest to just learn about algorithms design and what's in the hood of these robots. And so that's the reason why I left. And I think it's as you know, we grow older, as we grow and learn, our interest shifts too. And so I was always chasing my curiosity in the decisions that I made throughout my career. And yeah, so I did have anxiety about returning back because I knew it was going to be really hard. Um, I knew that, but I was like, you know what? If I don't do it, I'm going to always question what would have been if I decided to go. And so it was also, I think, stronger fear about regret that also pushed me as well. And yeah, it's been amazing. The thing is, yes, it's really hard, but there are resources to help you, your advisor, your lab mates, other colleagues, students there. And to help you along this journey, we need everyone's help. And so I've just been really fortunate to have a lot of support. Yes.
What is one of your favorite projects that you have worked on?
That's a hard question. If I had to choose my favorite project I've worked on, I think it is the robotics related projects because that was what really inspired me to pursue my PhD. And to learn more about it, to spend time solely dedicated to learning that. And so, yeah, I would say it's the robotics ones.
How do you deal with like the negative girls or women in science, and not only maybe about your ethnicity also being included in that, whether it's Asian or LGBTQ, something like that. How do you deal with that and advice for other people?
Yes, yes. I think for me, I've learned to have a thick skin, not to pay attention too much to stuff like that. As I mentioned earlier, when you're on the table sitting there, you're making decisions about design changes and negotiations, and it has nothing to do with my ethnicity, the fact that I'm a woman. It's what I bring to the table as my skill set, the years that I've spent working so hard in school. And so I just don't really pay attention to it, I think, and try not to let that bother me. And sometimes it could just be that you might have a conversation with them. Maybe they just they had misperceptions about certain things. And if they come and talk to me, I'm happy to just, share a bit more and do a little bit more of like education in a way. And open to that, and just realizing that maybe it's just lack of knowledge that they have on their end as well. But I try not to let stuff like that bother me. Mm.
As part of the Hmong community, we tend to be a collective society and tend to be around families to help support each other.
Mhm.
What advice would you give to another Hmong female whose parents or family does not support them to go so far from home to work or study?
Yes, that's I see that growing up in the Hmong community for sure, of really talented and intelligent girls who are held back because of that social aspect. I mean, that aspect of our culture. For me, um, my parents have always been really encouraging in my career dreams. And so I would say, you need to go where you need to go for that to get the best that you can experience in that area. But I can understand that it's really hard if your parents are not supportive. And so I would say reach out to mentors. Like it's important to have mentors who can support you along that journey. Because there are lots of people who can support you, not just your parents. And so, but with mentors, it takes time to build good relationships with them. They don't just fall in your lap, right? So it takes, I'd say, spend time like really building relationships with really good mentors so that when you get to that point where you really need their guidance and their wisdom and expertise to help you, that you have that support too. And so what I've learned is there are plenty of others who are rooting for you and who really want to see you succeed too. But it's a matter of you trying to find that community and building that community, because if you don't build it, no one's building for you. You have to do it. So I would encourage that.
So with coursework specifically, what advice would you give to someone who like the coursework, they're struggling with it,
Mhm.
but how, how do you, persevere through that and, get to like the end goal?
That's a good question. It reminds me of my undergrad years for sure. Because in my third year, when I was starting to take all the core classes, I considered switching out of engineering because I thought maybe I wasn't cut out for it, that it was too hard for me. But what turned out was I talked to a couple mentors about it, about what I was thinking. And what happened was we realized that I was just stretched too thin because during that time I was also rolling for Wisconsin. I was really active in student orgs. And so the solution was prioritization and time management. And so I dropped the rowing, I cut back on my student orgs, and I did fine in those classes. So I would say like really try to figure out like what the issue is, because in my case, it wasn't that you're not smart enough to take those classes. It was you were doing way too much. And when you do that, something gives. And so it's just prioritization. Grades are really important. I would say first prioritization is your grades. And when your grades are good, then you stack on other things. But I learned it the hard way for me when I stacked all these and it was like, okay, no. And so I'd say, yeah, really look at why is it that you may not be doing well? Because it may just be similar to me where you just have so much, you're working full-time job as well, or, balancing other things too.
Okay. A lot of the young women I work with feel a really great sense of pressure to be perfect, which results in a sort of fear of failure. So what have you learned from engineering about how you perceive and overcome failure?
I think that's a great question. I think in engineering, sometimes filler is actually good because there's the design is very iterative, right? So you design, you test it, and then you keep on iterating and going. And there are times where you do fail, like in PhD work, like sometimes your experiments, you don't get the results you are expecting to see. And you can keep on being perfect and tweaking, but you may not graduate. So there's this fine line between, okay, I need to do enough that I will be able to have good enough results, but it doesn't have to be the perfect paper, the perfect experiment. And if you fail along the way, it's actually a good learning experience. So I would say don't be afraid of failing because you can learn a lot from that too. So I would encourage that. Mhm.
Okay, maybe one last question.
Sure.
So we talk a lot about imposter syndrome when we're talking about women and girls in science. So
Mhm.
in those moments of imposter syndrome, when you feel like maybe you're questioning if you belong there, what do you say to yourself, or how do you kind of push through that?
Imposter syndrome, yes, I experience it from time to time too. And the way how I look at it is I spend time reflecting. It helps for me to reflect and see what I've overcome, because sometimes there's so much noise that are going on, and we lose that inner core and realizing that, hey, like I've overcome this and that already, and this what I'm experiencing right now. It's nothing that I can't overcome. And so I spend a good amount of time just meditating in a way and just quiet time, reflecting back on all that others who have given important to me, being grateful for all that I have, and just realizing, hey, I'm going to take it one day at a time. I don't have to solve this issue or this problem or finish this project right now. And so that helps for me to just step back. Thank you so much, everyone, for your time and for being here.
Okay. Thank you, Mai Lee, for an inspiring keynote. And thank you to all of you for celebrating the International Day of Women and Girls in Science with us. Please complete the evaluations. We use the information to guide future programs. Thank you again.